Now, you wouldn't think a big screen release produced by Bing Crosby Productions and starring a bunch of rats and their autistic or misfit leader would be a hit in the box office. It wasn't a hit with the critics, but boys, it did well at the turnstiles. And we're going to talk about the hidden horror classic of the early 70s, Willard. Now, this American horror film was directed by Daniel Mann, my apologies, and written by Gilbert Ralston, based on Stephen Gilbert's novel, Ratman's Notebooks. Academy Award nominee Bruce Davison, himself of the X-Men series, stars the social misfit Willard Stiles, who was squeezed out of the company started by his deceased father. His only friends are a couple of rats raised at home, including Ben and Socrates, and an increasing number of friends. When Socrates is killed by Willard's boss, he goes on a rampage, using his rats to attack. Now, again, produced by Mort Briskin, also starring Elsa Lanchester, of course, the Bride of Frankenstein, Ernest Borgnine, and a young Sandra Locke. Cinematography by Robert B. Hauser, edited by Warren Lowe, music by Alex North. Again, Big Crosby Productions, distributed by Cinerama Releasing. A February release didn't make Halloween for 1970, 95 minutes, but a tremendous box office hit, 14.5 million. Tremendous. Now, it did open to mixed reviews. Again, the 11th highest grossing release of the year. It was also nominated for an Edgar Award for Best Picture. The film was followed by a 72 sequel, Ben, and a 2003 remake, also titled Willard, with Crispin Glover portraying Willard and Davison making a cameo as Willard's father. Now, Ben, of course, had the title song sung by Michael Jackson and was nominated in the weirdest major nomination for a song in modern history. Now, Willard is a meek social misfit who develops an affinity for rats. He lives in his large house with his cranky and decrepit mother, Henrietta. Upon his 27th birthday, he comes home to a surprise birthday party thrown by his mother, where all the attendees are her friends. After leaving the party in embarrassment, he notices a rat in his backyard and tosses it pieces of his birthday cake. His mother tells him to eliminate the rats, but Willard uses food and a plank bridge to lure them in the pit, the backyard, then begins filling the pit with water to drown them. However, moved by the rats' piteous squeals as they realize their plight, he replaces the plank, allowing them to get to safety. He later begins playing with a rat he calls Queenie. A white rat, which Willard names Socrates, becomes his best companion. Other rats emerge, including a bigger black specimen who he names Ben, of course, is the star of the second movie. Now at work, Willard is tasked with an overwhelming number of accounts by his boss, Al Martin, who usurped the business from Willard's father. When Willard asks Al for a raise, having not received one since his father's death despite working after hours and weekends, Al refuses and pressures Willard to sell him the house. Willard sneaks into the party that Al is hosting, opens a rat-filled suitcase, and urges them to get the food. The guests are terrorized by the rats, and Al destroys the catering tables trying to fend them off. The next day, Willard's mother dies. He is informed that she had no money, and the house is heavily mortgaged. Now, Willard starts bringing Socrates and Ben to the office on Saturdays to keep him company while he's the only one in there. His friend and temporary assistant, Joan, gives him a cat named Cleo to comfort him. He hands Chloe off to a stranger. Meanwhile, the rat colony is growing, and Willard cannot afford to keep feeding them. After overhearing one of Al's friends boasting of a large cash withdrawal, he sneaks into the man's house and orders his reps to tear up the bedroom door. The man and his wife flee the house upon seeing the rats, and Willard steals the cash. The next day, a worker spots the rats. Al bludgeons Socrates to death, devastating Willard. When Joan refuses to persuade Willard to sell his house to Al, he fires her on Willard, believing that unemployment would force Willard to sell, is hoping for things to go his way. That night, while Al is at work, Willard enters the office with his rats. He confronts Al over the deaths of Socrates, the mistreatment of his father, and Al's machinations to buy his house. As Al attempts to attack him, Willard orders the rats to attack Al. Disorientated by the swarming rats, Al falls out the window to his death, with the rats eating the corpse, much to Willard's horror. After witnessing Al's gruesome death, Willard abandons the rats at the scene. The next day, he places the remaining rats in crates, submerges the crates in a water-filled pit until the rats drown, then buries the crates in the backyard. He then seals up any holes which with the rats could enter the house. Now, Willard has dinner with Joan at his house, telling her of his newfound self-confidence, which he attributes to her and Socrates. After the course of the conversation, however, he sees Ben staring sinisterly at him from a shelf. Investigating, he finds more hordes of rats in the basement. He orders Joan to leave and lock the door behind him. Willard offers Ben and the rats food, which he mixes with pesticide. Ben sniffs the pesticide box and squeals loudly, alerting the others. Willard chases Ben upstairs, cornering him in the storage room. He barricades the door against the other rats, leaving Ben to face him alone. Ben eludes Willard's attacks, and the rats nod through the door. Willard shouts, "I was good to you, Ben," before the rats start to jump on him. Overwhelmed, Willard succumbs to the attack. Now, a very, very interesting plot device. It was filmed in the summer of 1970 in hopes for a Halloween release, but it only premiered in February 71. Now, rentals differ. You see anywhere between 10 and 14 million. Now, the film review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reported an approval rating of 52% based on 23 reviews with a rating average of 5.6 out of 10. Now, I've seen Willard, and the best thing I can say, it's not really a horror. It's more like a lot of people don't like rats or mice, so you're not going to be happy to see Ernest Borgnine and different people under attack by rats. It freaks a lot of people out. I think that's what they call literally creeping terror. The critical consensus reads, Willard has an intriguing character study lurking within, but much of these elements, like many of the movie's characters, are swallowed up by the rats. Now, Vincent Canby of the New York Times dismissed the film as a dull movie of no major consequence, with the rats no more scary than fat, friendly hamsters, except for one or two shots were seen by the hundreds. And hundreds of anything might be a scary sight, even hundreds of bishops. Now, Variety called it a neat little horror tale, some good jump moments, at least 2 stomach-churning murders committed by the rats, and superior production values, with tight direction of Daniel Mann, developed pick into a sound nail chewer, in this case, line chewer. Roger Ebert only gave the film 2 out of 4 stars, as did Gene Siskel, who wrote that although it will have you keep your feet up on the theater floor, Daniel Mann's slow direction will lower your eyelids. The acting critics, however, are top-notch. Kevin Thomas of the LA Times wrote that one could not ask for more satisfying, yet less pretentious hot weather suspense horror entertainment. And this was being shown well into the summer of 71. Now, with its disturbed young hero, crumbling old mansion, and macabre developments, it immediately brings to mind Psycho. The more apt comparison, however, is with the much-cherished English comedy of some years back, The Green Man, in which Alistair Sim, at his drollest, went around blowing up a series of troublesome types. Tom Mind of the Monthly Film Bulletin thought that the rats were so well-mannered and prettily groomed that they were more likely to elicit coos of delight than shudders of fear. When the horrors do come, they are very tame indeed. Not one single shot to match the chilling menace dispensed by the brooding crows and the birds, or the prowling felines in Eye of the Cat. Instead, Daniel Mann settles for facile effects, like the cutting shot of rats staring at a piece of raw meat while they're supposedly demolishing Ernest Borgnine, and gradually drives what might have been an unusually intriguing horror film pretty much into the ground. Leonard Maltin also gave it 2 stars out of 4. His annual home video guide, writing touching story of a boy and his rats, captured public's fancy at the box office, but the film's lack of style prevents it being any more than second-rate thriller. Now, Ben the Rat won a Patsy Award as the Best Animal Performer to Feature Film for 71. Now, the sequel was released in 72. Now, 3 imitation films were made based on Willard and Ben's success. Stanley, a film which involved trained rattlesnakes, and was released before the second of the 2 films that inspired it, and 2 more films, both released 4 years afterwards. Kiss of the Tarantula, 76, and when a social misfit was a young woman who trained tarantulas, and Mako, the Jaws of Death, in which a social misfit had a telepathic connection with sharks. Now, Willard serves as an opening anecdote to the chapter Becoming Intense, Becoming Animal, Becoming Imperceptible, in Gilles Deleuze and Felix Gattetti's book, A Thousand Plateaus. Now, the remake came up in 2003, terrible. Davison does make a cameo appearance as Willard's father, appearing only a portrait of Styles' home above the fireplace, and he was the best actor in the show. Now, I haven't seen Willard in a while. There are some public domain cuts, but it's like exactly social misfit. Instead of, like, it was almost like the rats were channeling his psychic abilities. And I know it's kind of weird. Whoever taught this would make $50 million at the box office. I'd like to talk to him. But Bing Crosby's production company must have done, like, this was plastered every place. I've seen Willard posters all over the world in different languages. We're going to see it in the podcast. I think it's one of the most unique box office hits of all time. It's not the best movie, but the concept of a rat controlling someone who's treated like a rat, or treated, who's mousy, pretty strange. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, it's a 2-star movie, and like on a Sunday afternoon before you have to put out the garbage is a good fit. Because once you watch this, you're always going to check your garbage for obvious reasons. So if you like what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, with our Vintage Movie Podcast, let us know and like, comment, subscribe, or share.